Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Fakadu from Youth and Education Support Service Ethiopia. Again, it's a morning time. I'm going to the library and we'll ride together through the city of Haslet in East Michigan, Lansing area. And we'll also listen to the daily news together. Let's go.
Thanks to you all. Today's producer was Lauren Hamilton. This program comes to you from WAMU, part of American University in Washington, distributed by NPR. I'm Jen White. Thanks for listening. Nyla Boodoo is with you for the Friday News Roundup. Hope you tune in. We'll talk more soon. This is 1A.
Support for NPR comes from the station and from Indeed, committed to giving job listings increased visibility with relevant candidates through its sponsored jobs feature. Learn more at Indeed.com/NPR. From the Walton Family Foundation, working to create access to opportunity for people and communities by tackling tough social and environmental problems. More information is at waltonfamilyfoundation.org. And from the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation at macfound.org.
1A continues here on Michigan Public. Good morning, I'm Mike Perini. Listen for the update on Michigan, U.S., and global news in just a few minutes.
On the next Fresh Air, we talk with Peter Guralnick, the author of the definitive 2-volume biography of Elvis Presley. His new book is about Elvis's longtime manager, Colonel Tom Parker. Guralnick says researching the book led to many surprises and made him question the many preconceptions about Parker. It's called The Colonel and the King. Join us.
Listen for Fresh Air coming up today at noon. In Michigan Public weather, lots of clouds this morning with areas of rain, then clearing skies through the afternoon with highs in the mid to upper 70s. Tonight, partly cloudy to mostly clear and cool with lows in the 50s. And tomorrow, mostly sunny with highs in the mid to upper 70s. The National Weather Service is warning of dangerous swimming conditions for 3 counties along Lake Huron today. That's Huron, Sanilac, and St. Clair counties. Michigan Public is WUOM 91.7 Ann Arbor and Detroit, WFUM 91.1 Flint, WRSX 91.3 Port Huron, WLNZ 89.7 Lansing, and WVGR 104.1 Grand Rapids. It's 11 o'clock.
Teenagers face unique challenges in the summer. As their social lives move online, less in-person time with friends can make things worse. From WAMU and NPR in Washington, this is 1A. Hi, I'm Jen White. A report from The Atlantic finds that in the U.S., 15 to 24-year-olds spend 35% less time socializing face-to-face than they did 20 years ago. A lack of public spaces to congregate can make finding time with friends harder for teens and young adults, especially as cities like D.C. and Chicago pass stricter teen curfew laws to curb large gatherings. But how can building public spaces with teens in mind help encourage connection? If you're a teenager, we want to hear how you're spending your summer. Email us at 1a@wamu.org.
Live from NPR News, I'm Dale Willman. U.S. Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff is in Israel today. His visit comes a week after ceasefire talks with Israel and Hamas stalled in Doha, Qatar. NPR's Emily Fang explains the significance of Witkoff's trip.
Witkoff is going to meet with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to discuss the humanitarian crisis in Gaza and the release of hostages held in Gaza. A person familiar with the details but who is not authorized to speak publicly tells NPR. Israel began letting more aid in this week following growing global condemnation of its restrictions on letting food into Gaza. President Trump this week directly contradicted Israel's own prime minister, Netanyahu, saying that there is starvation in Gaza, and said the First Lady has also seen photos of hungry children in Gaza, calling those photos terrible. Also this week, the United Kingdom and Canada joined France in saying they will recognize a Palestinian state in September, depending on certain conditions. Emily Fang, NPR News, Tel Aviv.
Ford is reporting an $800 million loss in profits last quarter as a result of new tariffs. As NPR's Camila Dominowski reports, the auto industry has until now not passed the higher costs onto consumers.
Ford joins GM, Stellantis, Hyundai, Kia, and Volkswagen. All reported hefty tariff bills in their quarterly earnings. That's because higher tariffs on materials, parts, and imported cars have been in place since this spring. But the prices that car buyers pay have risen only slightly. Erin Keating is with Cox Automotive, which owns Kelley Blue Book. She says this is good news for consumers.
For a majority of the automakers, they're really taking the tariffs on the chin.
But she says she expects the vehicles for model year 2026 to start to reflect higher costs. Camila Dominowski, NPR News.
A dozen members of Congress are suing the Trump administration for allegedly blocking them from visiting Immigration and Customs Enforcement detention facilities. As NPR's Tovia Smith reports, the lawmakers say ICE is preventing them from carrying out oversight required by the law.
Lawmakers say their oversight is urgent now, given the unprecedented number of detainees and claims of overcrowding and inadequate food and medical care. But they say the administration's blocking access with a new 7-day waiting period. Sky Perriman is with the liberal nonprofit Democracy Forward, which represents the lawmakers.
The law is very clear that they must be granted access. And this is just one additional example of the administration ignoring the law and thwarting the role of Congress.
DHS says the advance notice is needed to prevent, quote, interference with the president's authority to oversee executive department functions and to ensure security. Exceptions, they say, can be made. Tovia Smith, NPR News.
Consumer spending in June rose 0.3% over the previous month. That increase was driven in part by higher energy prices. You're listening to NPR News.
With Michigan Public News, I'm Mike Perini. The federal One Big Beautiful Bill Act has reset the state's budget picture, and the legislature and Governor Gretchen Whitmer face tough choices. An independent study says Michigan needs to come up with $1.1 billion to balance the state budget. Michigan Public's Rick Pluta reports.
The nonpartisan Citizens Research Council of Michigan says the looming shortfall is led by spending on health care, food assistance, and other safety net programs in the next state budget. Senior research associate Bob Schneider calls it an almost unprecedented cost shift driven by a federal policy decision.
We're going to need even more austerity and budget cutting to get this budget done. And those impacts are going to come very quickly.
He says it also complicates the prospects for a road funding deal between Whitmer and a politically divided legislature, which has already missed the July 1st legal deadline to have a budget done. I'm Rick Pluta.
2 Michigan cities are ranked among the dozen dirtiest in the nation. Michigan Public's Steve Carmody has that story.
The list comes from Lawn Starter, a company that, as its name would imply, is more interested in landscaping than pollution. Still, the survey looked at factors like air and water quality and how close city residents live near high-traffic roadways. Detroit came in third on the Dirty City list, just behind Los Angeles and San Bernardino, California. In fact, California had 4 cities in the top 10. Flint ranked 12th on the list. I'm Steve Carmody.
An air quality advisory is in effect for the whole state of Michigan today. Right now, air quality is in the unhealthy range in much of southern Michigan. Smoke from Canadian wildfires started moving into the Upper Peninsula on Tuesday and has made its way south. In the Michigan Public weather forecast, lots of clouds this morning with areas of rain. In the afternoon, clearing skies. That may take longer in Ann Arbor and Detroit. We'll have highs in the mid to upper 70s. Tonight, partly cloudy to mostly clear with lows in the 50s. This is Michigan Public News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Lilly Endowment, a private foundation supporting NPR's coverage of religion and spirituality, and Jarl and Pamela Mohn, focusing on civil liberties, foster youth, public radio, and the arts.
This is 1A. I'm Jen White. How do teenagers spend their summer months? If you let pop culture tell you the story, it might sound something like this.
For me, it was almost like winter didn't count.
Summer was what mattered. My whole life was measured in summers. Like, I don't really begin living until June.
All for one and one for all. All right? This is our summer. Now, what team? Wildcats! What team? Wildcats!
What'd you do this summer, Sandy? Oh, I spent most of it at the beach. I met a boy there.
Hauled your cookies all the way to the beach with some guy?
He was sort of special.
There ain't no such thing.
He was really romantic.
Well, for real-world, modern-day young people, socializing isn't all parties and beach houses. According to a report from The Atlantic, in the U.S., 15 to 24-year-olds spend 35% less time socializing face-to-face than they did 20 years ago. And according to the Digital Parenthood Initiative, teens spend up to 6 hours a day looking at screens. This comes as cities like D.C. and Chicago implement stricter curfew laws. So what spaces are available for teens to meet up? And what happens as their social lives move online? Joining us to discuss is Valerie Adams-Bass. She's a developmental psychologist and assistant professor of childhood studies at Rutgers University in Camden, New Jersey. She's also worked with cities to provide public spaces and extracurricular programs for teenagers. Valerie, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Joining us in studio is Lauren Lumpkin. She's a reporter covering D.C. schools at the Washington Post. Lauren, welcome.
Hi.
And we want to hear from you, especially if you're a teenager. How is your social life this summer? Do you think there are enough public spaces for you and your friends to hang out? If you're the parent of a teen, what kinds of spaces are available for young people to spend time together in person where you live? Send us an email at 1a@wamu.org. We got this text from one of you. Teens, my daughter included, have few local neighborhood spaces to spend their time outside of summer classes, work, and volunteerism, especially in the evenings. As a family, we're fortunate to spend quality time together going to Pirates games, catching a concert or two or three, and at least one vacation lasting 7 to 12 days. And I would be remiss not to mention the time spent dealing with the political grief of their time. Conversations about what is happening in our world and what we can do for our own mental health while being aware of what's happening to others happen almost daily. But Lauren, let's start with D.C., where we're speaking from right now. The city recently passed an emergency bill that extended summer curfews for minors through August 31st. So anyone under the age of 18 can't be out and about from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. every day. How did this come about?
It really came in reaction to a lot of the more, I guess you could say, rowdy incidents we've seen with young people. 4th of July, I think, kind of was a crucial point where I think it was about more than a dozen teens were arrested and got in trouble for setting off fireworks and being kind of just, I guess, disorderly in the Navy Yard area. And it's something we see every summer when, kids are outside and kind of gathering in big crowds. And so the council in response kind of passed these stricter curfew laws.
And so that 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. curfew, does that mean they can't be out and about at all, or just they can't be out and about without adult supervision?
Yeah, there's a few exceptions. You have to be with a parent or guardian. You could be kind of going to and from a school event or a religious event, but the exceptions are pretty small.
Well, D.C. isn't the only city strengthening curfew laws this summer. Chicago's city council passed a snap curfew ordinance, and it gives police the authority to issue a last-minute curfew with only 30 minutes notice. Chicago already has a 10 p.m. curfew in place for teens. Now, in 2014, Baltimore enacted curfew laws that were among the strictest in the country at the time. A report published 2 years later found that curfew led to an increase in youth arrests. Plus, a 2015 study by the ACLU on racial disparities and low-level arrests in Minneapolis found that police disproportionately arrested black youth for curfew violations. Valerie, in your view, do curfews work?
No. The short answer is no. Curfews don't work unless there's an alternative programming or activity for young people to be involved with.
I'll say, so they need something else to do, but what effect does it have on kids if they feel like they're being surveilled or watched?
Unfortunately, there's a level of agitation associated with that, particularly when you're talking about adolescents who have more agency, a little more autonomy than younger children and youth. And so they're going to feel a little bit like they're being repressed, if you will, in an attempt to control their behavior. And adolescents are also in a period where they are going to test boundaries, right? That's what you do as you're growing, as you are developing an identity or changing your identity. So the idea that they can't be outside, if they don't have alternative places to be, they're going to push the boundaries. And that doesn't work too well for groups of young people that often make adults, unfortunately, uncomfortable, particularly if they're youth of color.
Well, you study how Black children see themselves. How does surveillance and policing affect the self-image of Black teens?
Sure. So in terms of, for many Black teens, there's an awareness, particularly after Black Lives Matter, there's an awareness that how they are perceived is highly based on what they look like, the color of their skin, other attributes associated to where they live, assumptions about who they are, stereotypes about whether they're angry, whether they're loud. And so when they see that, one thing that young people are trying to do is preserve and protect their identity. So when someone is challenging them or treating them in a way that's based on stereotypes or incomplete or inaccurate information, they're likely going to respond in a way that they're trying to protect themselves, right? They're trying to hold on to their identity. And so when that happens, particularly in a group, that's going to spark a response. And it's a natural response to say no, to press against someone who is trying to label you in a particular way. But when it comes to people of authority like police, that is going to cause a whole nother level of friction, unfortunately, that results in, adjudication for young people.
Now, Lauren, Valerie said curfews and her curfew don't work unless there are other activities for young people to participate in. You and your Washington Post colleagues investigated rising truancy in D.C. Nearly 16,000 students were truant in the 2023-24 school year. So D.C. public school leadership set goals to create more extracurricular programs to try to engage students. But a lot of those initiatives fell apart by 2023. And then that year, a spike in youth crime was reported in the city, with youth robbery arrests at the highest they've been in 2 decades. So what stood out to you about how teens are or aren't using these extracurricular programs?
Exactly. There are, I think when I talk to young people, especially in the middle school, high school age, that's when they're really frustrated by what they feel like are a lack of options. I think elementary school, it's maybe more straightforward to, design programming for them. They're young, they like running around outside, arts and crafts, pretty straightforward. Once you're in middle school, okay, you feel a little bit more independent. You want to be treated like an adult. Some of them are being treated like adults and given real adult responsibilities, and that just continues through high school. And so what I hear a lot is just like there's a programming mismatch. Maybe their school offers programs after school, or maybe their local rec center has things to do over the summer, but if you're 13, like maybe you don't want to do arts and crafts all day. They want career tech, they want entrepreneurship, they want things that are a little bit more, maybe sophisticated than what like an elementary schooler would do.
Is the DC public school system responding to this mismatch between what teens want and the program that's actually provided?
It is. I think they're catching on. This summer, DCPS, DC Public Schools, is offering some career technical education programming. And so I spent time with this robotics group a couple weeks ago and talked to some students there who entered the program and just needed something to do during the day while their parents were at work, and fell in love with robotics. And the girls were like, we didn't even think we would like robotics. This is not offered at their school, at the middle school that they go to during the year. So it was a chance for them to explore something that they wouldn't have had a chance to do otherwise.
Let's go back to our voicemail box.
What I observed for the challenges that teens are facing this summer, one of the things as a mother of a 17-year-old is that it is very hard to find a job, believe it or not. And all the jobs that are typical teen jobs are filled so quickly, and that human interaction that comes from that working environment is missing. So there's more time on the kids' hands to have to fill it with something else, which inevitably often turns out just to hang out at home online. So the competitive job market that is taken by college students who can't find entry-level jobs at their level, it has an impact on high school-age teens as well.
Thanks for that message. Valerie, how do you respond? Can summer jobs benefit teens if they can find them?
Summer jobs can absolutely benefit teens. That's a long-standing programming opportunity, particularly in large cities. Excuse me, but one of the challenges is orienting the employers who are going to work with high school age students. So yes, there's competition from college students who come home and can't find employment in other internships. They've not been successful, or they've graduated and they don't have their first position. But also some of what happens is employers hire teenagers and give them work that's mundane. File the papers, recycle, take out the trash. Those, unfortunately, and we've heard you think of that, talk about those experiences and the likelihood that those teens are going to stay all summer, those type of positions where they're thinking they're going to get actual work performance is low. So particularly in Philadelphia, one of the things that happened is they started having orientation for the employers, onboarding sessions. So you have to be able to understand how to work with teens and what kinds of opportunities you want to provide for them when they are in your workplace.
We're talking to Valerie Adams Bass. She's assistant professor of childhood studies at Rutgers University, and Lauren Lumpkin, a reporter covering D.C. schools for the Washington Post. Coming up, we talk to a recent high school graduate in D.C. about how he's spending his summer and what he hopes adults understand about what young people need to fight isolation and loneliness. And we want to hear from you too, especially if you're a teenager or the parent of one. How is your social life this summer? Where do you and your friends hang out? Email us at 1a@wamu.org. We'll be right back.